attitudes towards religion, because new global data suggests that Britons are the least likely nationality to identify as religious, following a long-term decline in faith since the 1980s. The research led by the Policy Institute at King's College London also found that the share of the UK population who say God is not important in their lives is at a record high. While the belief in heaven has decreased in the last 4 decades, the idea of life after death and hell has remained stable, with younger generations more inclined to believe in both, despite being less religious in general. Well, let's talk to one of the authors of the report, Professor Bobby Duffy, director of that Policy Institute. Bobby, thank you so much for being here on the programme. That is actually fascinating in terms of the numbers in decline. Over what sort of period?
That's the benefit of these long-term studies. So this goes back to 1981. And since then, we've gone from 6 in 10, 1981, saying they see themselves as a religious person, down to 3 in 10 in 2022. So it's halved. And you see similar sorts of declines in belief in God, as you say, from 3/4 down to half of the UK public now, and things like heaven. And it's partly because we've got younger generations coming into the population with a lower connection to religion. But actually, the main effect is very big declines in connection to these kind of official standard religions among older generations, particularly the baby boomers, who are now much closer to younger generations in how important they see religion to themselves than they were in the past.
I was intrigued, and I read out some of the data there. You will know it because you oversaw it, but I was intrigued at people less inclined to believe in God, but still believing in life after death. That's almost a contradiction, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a really important signal to religious organizations that this is a change in our connection to organized religion, and how relevant people see that. But underlying that, there is this real need to see something beyond this life, beyond what's immediately in front of us. And that sense of spirituality is incredibly strong and consistent, and even perhaps slightly higher, a small uptick in recent generations of young people. So this is not a rejection of the idea that there's more to this life than we see immediately in front of it. It is more about the traditional structures of religion, which gives an opportunity for connecting with people, I think, on that deeper level.
Yes, that's interesting. I mean, you followed and tracked this sort of data. Were you surprised at the outcome of this particular set of results?
Yeah, I think it has changed. The beauty of these studies is it allows you to look back and remember how much we've changed. And then, as you say, put us in an international context where we are much more secular than many, many other countries. And important to bear that in mind too, that these changes, these declines in religious attachment are actually only seen in some countries, and actually still very strong and even increasing religious attachment in other countries around the world, particularly countries that are growing in population. So actually, religion is actually a growth market, not a declining market globally, but it's very different in countries like the UK.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you in terms of globally, because you looked at other countries. I mean, how do these statistics about what is happening here in this country compare, say, to a country like China?
China and Japan and South Korea are some of the countries that have a lower level of attachment to religion in these themes. They have a very different cultural background on religion. We tend to come in more around other Western European countries, and very different from countries like the US. So again, this global perspective is very useful in emphasizing just how different we are to the US. We think we're similar in many ways, many cultural ways, but on things like how religious we are, they are much more religious. And say, for example, our baby boomer generation, very different from their baby boomer generation. We have much less attachment to those traditional aspects of religion than they do there.
Professor Duffy, we have to leave it there, but it's fascinating, this whole subject, and I'm glad you've come on and talked to us about it today on BBC News. Thanks so much for your time.